Hey there, I recently saw a writer friend that was reading a book. I think she did it on Facebook Live, so I'm recording this video. I'm not live while I'm doing this. But it made me think about how I still have not had the opportunity to make my book into an audiobook. And so I thought I would put the first chapter out on social media, go ahead and read it for you, and I hope you enjoy it. So, chapter 1 of Made for More. How I found myself here. I had my entire life planned out. I was going to be the perfect person. I would be an incredible wife, a rock star mom, a successful businesswoman, and a loyal friend. Do you want to know what my superpower was? Perfection. Perfection seemed to come naturally to me, and I made it my pinnacle of success. Imperfection meant failure. I held myself and everyone around me to this standard. I am capable of looking at every situation and making it a worldly success. I can create order out of chaos. I can see situations coming at me and plan accordingly so that they do not hurt my meticulously put together life. I process, I plan, I make everything perfect, which makes me feel successful. Or so I thought. My husband Scott and I said yes to adoption, and that's where I can pinpoint the beginning of my grand ideals slipping through my fingertips. I'm forever grateful that God was gracious enough to pull me out of my mindset of perfection. God used our family's adoption calling to begin to set me free from my prison. I learned quickly that adoption and orphan care do not fit into a nice, tidy box. Adoption and orphan care do not always sync with full-time office jobs or 5-year plans. My plan was to be a working mom. I could do it. In my mind, that was what I was created to do. But after we came home from China, I walked away from my job. It was more than that to me, though. I felt like I was walking away from my entire career, which had become my identity. I was losing a huge part of who I was. It was one of the hardest seasons that I've walked through. My entire life changed and everything began to shift. I questioned, I cried, and then I cried some more. Life has a way of throwing at us hard seasons that wake us up to be loved by God in a way we've never experienced. Maybe a sickness, maybe the birth or death of a child, maybe an adoption, maybe a whisper when you cry out to God because you are sick of trying to be perfect. For me, I began to realize that no matter how perfect I tried to be as a mom, I couldn't heal all of the hurts my children experience. I realized that my small-minded idea of the perfect career wasn't aligning with God's immeasurable calling on my life. I also began to see how unfair and limiting it was to hold my husband, friends, family members, colleagues, and mentors to my personal definition of success. God took my perfect world and slowly peeled it away from me. I've never clung to God more than when I realized I needed Him to fill in the cracks had formed as my carefully crafted life crumbled to the floor like a cookie in my 3-year-old's hand. Actually, my life didn't just crumble, it crashed. More like the Buzz Lightyear action figure that my son thinks may actually fly at some point if he continually throws it into the air. But then, through my confusion and tears, because I had just threw my entire career out the window, I heard God whisper, "You were made for more." I finally began to believe that God had another plan for me. He had more for me than my safe plans of sitting behind a computer screen in an oversized office chair, more than my small mind could ask or imagine. His plans would be immeasurable. I knew He wanted me to write. He wanted to create beauty out of my unplanned season. The day after perfect. I found myself in a small town coffee shop in rural Ohio with my laptop open while processing my life. That's a dramatic way to say that I was writing. I sipped my red eye and ate my warm blueberry muffin while coffee machines hummed in the background. I began to believe that God had ordained this time in my life. I hadn't planned this path, but He had. I'd always wanted to write a book, but I thought it would be when I was old and wise. Spoiler alert, I'm not old or wise. This wasn't supposed to happen now. This book was on the long-term plan of my life, and I don't always handle changing plans well. Just ask my husband, Scott. Scott loves to plan where we are going to dinner early in the day, but then he'll change his mind 2 or 3 times before we actually go, and it stresses me out. Flexible is not my middle name, which made this time in my life incredibly difficult, but also miraculous. The days following the shattering of my plans, which I categorize as when I became a writer, were wild and weird. Even as I type these words, I only have a vague plan as to how I'm going to get these words into your hands. But I'm weirdly just fine with it. The old Lauren would have had to have the entire plan in place before starting this book. Perfectionism breeds efficiency and can make large projects like writing a book difficult. One time, a coworker and I were tasked with rewriting the nurse job descriptions for the entire nursing staff at the hospital we worked at. We were both perfectionists. The job descriptions never felt good enough or done. If we hadn't set deadlines and goals for that project, they probably still wouldn't be done. Perfectionists never feel done because we are always chasing an illusion that doesn't exist. Planning and quality work are good, but if we're not careful, they can chip away at the miracles God longs to perform in our lives. Shattered plans and imperfect work tend to draw me closer to my Savior. If we allow it, God's glory can be so evident in those moments. I've wasted many years making my own plans. By making my own plans, I mean that I made decisions that were logical and safe. Perfectionists and planners like safe. It's how we roll. If it's safe, we will gladly do it. And we'll do it well. On top of the perfectionism, I'm driven to always be all in and do my best in every situation. If you're a perfectionist, you probably go all in too. Part of the fear of dropping perfectionism is that it forces us to choose what we are called to go all in on and what we need to let go. Going all in is very admirable if you're solely focused on God's plan for your life. When it's your own plan, though, you will tire easily and become frustrated with yourself and others. I've always wanted to do my absolute best in every role that I was ever given. It's part of my hardwiring. My all-in hardwiring, paired with my desire to be perfect, has felt like a weakness or fault. And for a while, I believed that no good could come out of it. But now I am learning what a God-given gift it is and how I can use it to glorify Him. I understand more than ever that I have to know my priorities and be completely focused on God in order for my gift to glorify Him. Realizing that I can't be all in for everyone and everything forced me to rid myself of selfish ambition. Just because I gave up by idle perfection does not mean that I stopped going all in or doing my best. It simply means that I don't worship perfection anymore. It means that I look to God for guidance on where He wants me to focus my energy. I do my best and let God do the rest. It frees me and simplifies my calling. I've learned that true success is being faithful to what God calls me to, regardless of whether I fail or achieve a desired outcome. God's glory is magnified through my weakness, not an outcome. When perfection doesn't equal success anymore, we can rest in the calling God has placed on our lives. No matter how mundane or daunting it seems, even if it's messy, chaotic, overwhelming, or completely imperfect, God will use it. The twists and turns that we face may not have been in our well-articulated and thought-out plan, but there are grace and peace as God guides us through them. Obstacles and bumps may bring you down a path that is better than anything you could have ever planned on your own. God knows the desires of our hearts. He makes all things new. He gives us grace, peace, and joy to get through every season, even the unplanned, completely undesirable one. I pray that my words in this book fill you with hope wherever you are in your journey and lead you perfectly into full surrender to God's plan for your life. This book is my story, but it is so much more than that. It's filled with lessons that God has taught me over the years that I desperately want to share with you. I long for you to be free of perfection, striving, planning, manipulation, or anything that keeps you from being able to see and live in God's grace and display His glory. Let's be perfectionists at being in the will of God, because we are made for more.